A princess, under the stress of a diplomatic world tour, leaves her entourage behind and goes incognito while in Rome, where she meets an opportunistic journalist assigned to write about her in William Wyler's 1953 film Roman Holiday, starring Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck. That's the movie we'll be digging into this week on Movie Bones. Welcome. My name's Justin Miller, and my co-host here is Ryan Spurlock. Say hi, Ryan.
Hello, hello, hello.
All right, and this is Movie Bones, the podcast where we dig up movies from before the age of blockbusters to discover everything we missed and share our experiences with you. If that's a journey you'd like to take, then join us, won't you? So today's film is Roman Holiday, and it's a film that stars Audrey Hepburn, Gregory Peck, and Eddie Albert. Princess Anne is played by Audrey Hepburn, and she's stressed from this really aggressive schedule her handlers have put her on, and has a breakdown. It's full of nonstop dedications and ship christenings and functions, parades, balls, and probably a mess ton of meetings too. And so they end up sedating her because she's all wound up, and she runs away before the sedation really kicks in, which is kind of critical because then as she goes out there, she just kind of gets progressively more loopy, I guess you could say. While she's out there, she runs into Joe Bradley, played by Gregory Peck, who finds her in this kind of quasi-not-quite-alert state and is forced to kind of take her in because it's late and no one's there to pick her up or take her home. So he takes her home and he finds out who she is. And it's really extraordinary opportunity for him because he's a journalist and his whole job is to be able to, at this moment, his assignment is to cover the princess. And here she is, and she doesn't know that he's a journalist, right? So he plays her along with this purpose, and then they start to fall in love a bit because it is a rom-com. Some people have said it's like the first film of the modern kind of rom-com age, and I can see where they get that from. So Ryan, your first thoughts?
Honestly, this is one of my, I wouldn't say favorite movies of all time, but it is on up there. One of the reasons why it's on up there is because I am a big Audrey Hepburn fan. I've always been. Recently, I have watched quite a bit of her movies, and she's just fantastic in every single one of them, and everything. And also, like Gregory Peck, even though I've really only seen Gregory Peck, to be quite honest with you, because it's my favorite role of his, is in To Kill a Mockingbird and everything. So there is quick aside, it's a bit jarring watching Gregory Peck go from this very stoic figure in Atticus Finch to a wily type of figure in his character Joe in this movie and everything.
Yeah, it is. It really is a great movie. And I have not, that might be one of our films later on because To Kill a Mockingbird is one that I have not seen.
Oh, it's good.
And you're going to, I know, I'm sure it will be. And I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, he does a great job in this film too. He does this really great. He has a really great physical performance, but also he kind of with the wordplay too. He's got a very casual, kind of almost roll off the tongue kind of sense of humor. It almost feels like he's rolling with it. He's got this really weird situation with her, but he just kind of rolls with it with the dialogue and even the physical comedy too. Although I wouldn't say it's his style of physical comedy isn't like slapstick. It's more like the scene where she's going up the stairs, right? He's leading her up to the stairs to the apartment, and she kind of takes the wrong turn. He's going up the stairs, and she's kind of down there, and he just kind of has to just turn her arm a little bit and gracefully turn her back. It's little stuff like that.
And it's such a beautiful scene, too, because because of how he pulls that off and how she pulls it off, too, and, being the loopy figure and everything,
yes.
But just it's almost like a dance.
It is. So yeah, there's that, and I think some of the later scenes where one of the other things that really impressed me was there was that scene with the mouth of truth, and it's like, here's a joke. Yeah, exactly right. Here's a joke that any number of other movies, you could just do 3, 2, 1, and there's the joke, right? You can see it coming, but it takes a special movie to be able to see it coming, and yet still get you anyway. And it has everything to do with Gregory Peck And I don't know if that it was something that was spontaneous or if it was planned, but Audrey Hepburn really came off as being surprised by it. And it's like that's kind of what really sells the believability of a joke that in other circumstances would be, fairly predictable. But they really sell it.
I know this is kind of like in your next part of the notes, but the other part of his physical comedy comes from his interactions with Irving, which, I mean,
yes.
They do it, I think like 3 times in the movie. They do that kind of like, he spills something or he pushes him or he does something to him. It might be twice, but all the times that it's done so well that you're like, okay, they've made this particular comedy instance work in a great way multiple times. And that's a testament to the filmmakers, to the acting, to the writers, to all that good stuff.
It really is. And I went back and I rewatched the first scene with Gregory Peck, and it's the poker scene where he's playing with Eddie Albert's character, who I can't think of the name of right now, but you get this great sense of their friendship and relationship, which they play up on later, but it's that very first situation where there's like, the strange betting techniques that Irving is employing, and they're just giving each other looks like, I can't believe you just did that. It is so natural, and you feel like these guys have known each other forever. So that later on when he calls him up, it's like there's this very already natural rapport going on. You believe that because of that great setup that they did in those early scenes together. And Eddie Albert's a good actor too. Did you notice by any chance that in the beginning of the film, it's like, here's this princess of where? It almost becomes the art of how to avoid saying where your princess is princess of.
Yeah. Which that's a common trope. Believe it or not. Really? It is more common than you would think. Like you put like in a movie like The Princess Diaries, which isn't necessarily a rom-com, but it like borders on that with Anne Hathaway and everything. They actually have her being a princess of a specific place. But like in other places, like it's either super obscure name or it's just kind of like, it's just somewhere.
It's a made up name and you roll with it.
Yeah.
But here it's like, I don't know if it was because they didn't think that would be believable enough, if they just kind of created a fictional country. And they probably felt like if they try to use a real country, they might just make someone mad.
Yeah, and I understand that.
And some of the lines that they use in the movie in the beginning, when it's like a newsreel type thing where they're describing this whole procession she's got to go through and meeting this person and that person. And they use the phrase, one of Europe's oldest ruling families, designed to cement trade relations between her country and the Western European nation, and at her country's embassy that evening, by her country's ambassador to Italy. I think I felt a little bit like it was, I know what you're doing, and I probably know why you're doing it. And it's easy to overlook it because it's like there's so much other good stuff in the film, and it doesn't take away in my enjoyment in the least. I just had to point it out because it's just kind of a funny aside that when you're watching it. Yeah.
I mean, in the movie is filmed or released at least in 1953. You're probably still feeling some tensions from World War II and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got like, it's like, I don't know why. Honestly, you know what country I think she's from the whole entire time?
What's that?
Both, like the times that I've watched this movie, for some reason, my brain just says Russia or some kind of Russian adjacent country and everything. That's always kind of what I've assumed. Maybe like Ukraine, somewhere in that area and everything. So, something that's not like super huge, but, something that has some kind of influence, a place that has some kind of influence. That's, and then, it's like we're trying to, increase relations with Western European countries.
Right.
And, I feel like Germany is probably, they're probably a little bit still, has a lot of bad look to them at that time, 1953. So like I'm picking somewhere in those areas. Yeah.
It's been less than a decade. You have to think about that. Was it 1953? That's 8 years.
One other reason why I think like it's like a Russian or a Russian adjacent country is because her name is Anya, and that is that's a Russian. It's got Russian origins to it.
Gotcha.
And everything.
Yeah, Rome is a great location for filming too. They did a good job at getting like the Colosseum and other. In the opening shot of St. Peter's Square, that was really beautiful too. They did a good job with that as well. I don't know if you know this, but I think I've read somewhere that this is the film that kind of popularized the Vespa. Did you know that?
I did not know that, actually. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So it's like that little scooter thing that they ride around on. You
Yeah.
see it in multiple places.
I will say this as well, real quick. You know, I'm not saying it's not an issue in today's movies. It's not as much of an issue, but like in older movies like that, once you're across the world, across the pond, anyways, and like especially if you're not in one of the more popular countries, it can be very easy to stereotype the people from
Yeah.
that land. And I think they did a good job. And knowing that they filmed in Rome probably helped, but I think they did a good job of like not stereotyping the Roman people and everything,
Right.
or the Italian people, really. Every person that was in the movie that was Italian, they had their own motivations, they had their own lives, and they really did a good job of like, even if they're not super important characters, they did a good job of, of showing that.
They did. They did. I mean, it was authentic. You could still tell that they're from that region, but they're not playing it up.
Yeah.
It did a good job at that.
I'm not going to imitate this or anything, but we're not getting someone that's akin to, Super Mario. And that's a good thing that we don't get that, because that is something that they could have done if they wanted to go around, especially since it's a romantic comedy movie.
Yeah. As we go through these films, I know we're going to encounter over time a lot of those kind of stereotypes. We will encounter them. They were fairly prevalent at the time.
Yeah. And then, I mean, another movie that she's in, probably maybe her most famous movie,
I know what you're going to say.
Breakfast at Tiffany's,
Tiffany's, yes.
That character, I forget the character's name, but,
it's, I know the actor is not Buddy Hackett. It's, or Mickey Rooney.
Yeah,
Mickey Rooney. That's it. Yeah.
He plays a very stereotyped Chinese character, and it's super racist. Super racist.
Oh. Cringe, man. It's just super cringe. And that's an otherwise good movie, too.
Yeah.
Besides that. So
that's going on a list.
On the whole, the rom-com genre isn't one I'm particularly big on. But the ones I do glom onto usually have something else to go on. Like, on Groundhog Day, there's the supernatural twist. That's one of my favorite of that genre. There's also The Princess Bride, which has a terrific supporting cast. And it really is more of an ensemble piece in many ways. And I could be completely wrong about my own assessment here, but it feels like, there always has to be something for me other than just rom-com. And I think the thing that it stands out for me in this is the fact that she and Gregory Peck, they don't end up together at the end, but more than that, it's not a tragedy. You don't feel like it's a tragedy when they're not together, because they both have grown in their own ways. And it's still a positive outcome. It's just not the outcome that's kind of stereotypical. It's like they end up together. So, and sometimes it's like they have the couple not be together, and it's a tragedy because, well, one of them or both of them die. Mm-hmm. Fill in the blank. There's plenty of those too. But to have that and it not be a tragedy, I thought that's what really attracted me to this film.
Another kind of thing that, you talk about this being like one of the for that time, newer versions of the rom-com. A rom-com has like a specific structure, and that structure usually is two people that are from opposite ends of life spectrum come together. They're not so big on each other at first, or there's like a reason why they're forced into this similar situation. As the movie goes on, they start to fall in love. They might have like that first kiss, or they might get close to that first kiss. And then something happens where they're both drawn away from each other and everything. And it's usually like, most of the time, it's usually like one of them getting mad at the other one. They spend like a day, a week, a month, depends on how much time you want to put it apart. And, they're both sad about it. And then like finally someone comes, the person that's done the wrong comes back and they're like, oh, I apologize, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That's almost could be something that's set up in this movie, because in this movie, they're both actively lying to each other, but he knows that he's more in the wrong in that sense, because, she has a reason to not tell that she's the princess, because, if he does realize it, and who knows, maybe that turns into a whole different thing and everything like that. But, he knows that she's a princess. He's actively lying to her that he doesn't know that she's a princess. And he's also actively lying to her that, that he is a reporter and everything, and potentially doing a job. It could set it up. In modern age, I guarantee it'd be set up in such a way that like they do fall in love, and then like, oh, he's somehow she finds out that maybe he's only doing this to try to get a story out of her, and that's what makes her upset and everything. But it doesn't do that. The reveal at the very end, he shows her through giving her the picture, or through Irving giving her the pictures. Yep. This is what we could have done, and because of our time together, because of how I feel for you, I don't want to do this.
Yes, and that's one of the things. Is like, I actually, the first time I watched this, I was like, and is it going to do the thing that I've seen so many times before? And it dodges it, and it dodges it in a way that makes it actually beautiful, because it turns this. It's like, I love how sometimes in movies they'll have an object, or I call it an avatar of whatever the theme of the movie is. In this case, it ends up being the pictures. The pictures represent. It's a symbol of like they're kind of exploiting the situation for their own benefit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of becomes that emblem of their exploitation of the situation. And in the end, it becomes a beautiful gift, a genuine gift, and an act of love. It's like, here's this thing. It means so much to you. First of all, we don't have it anymore. It's completely yours to do with whatever you want. But it's kind of like, here are these photographs as a memoir of your time not being a princess. And I thought that was so beautiful. That's what really brings it home.
That, speaking of like living that life and everything, I'm going to talk just about like her position in the world, because no matter, I know people will think like, oh, she's rich, she's powerful, she's a princess. She doesn't really have, that much, where she's got to deal with and everything. But that being said, maybe you could argue that. But like, let's look at this movie from just her point of view and everything. She's born into this life, so she doesn't get to choose it. I mean, I hate to say it, but there are certain people out there, no matter how rich, powerful they are, no matter how poor and, weak they are, we don't get to choose oftentimes what life we're thrust into as a baby and everything. And you see that the life that she's living, it's prim, it's proper. There's a lot of benefit to it. There's a lot of privilege to it. We're not going to deny that. But at the same time, she doesn't get to be a person. And you see that from the get-go, is like, oh, no. It's like that's what starts that freak out, which, a little side note here real quick. If you didn't know this movie was a rom-com, because that first part of the movie is about like her, you could make an assumption like this, what way is this going? Because, I mean, she has a tried and true, emotional, mental breakdown. She's genuine, she's answering those questions one after another like she's supposed to. And then all of a sudden she just snaps, and she's like, stop it. I'm not going to scream or anything like that, but stop it. And then, she's in the midst of that emotional breakdown. And how do they treat her? They don't treat her like, oh, let's get to the root of this problem. They treat her almost like an object of this, a robot. Yes. Let's look at her as a robot. This robot is malfunctioning. Let's give the robot what it needs to stop malfunctioning. And their solution to stop her from malfunctioning is to, drug her up and everything.
It does put you in her corner very quickly.
Yeah.
And the movie needs to do that because it has bigger things it needs to do later. And it wants to get into it right away. And it does get you right away because of that, because of this treatment. You almost just want to like, these people the matron, I don't know what her position was, but I call her the handler. She's the handler.
Man, if you didn't say anything, I could have told you, because she said it right there at the end of the movie. She's not a duchess or anything like that. Countess. I think she's a countess.
Countess. Okay.
Yeah. I just want to say that's what like her kind of like title is, because they're exchanging some words. Not anything bad. They're just exchanging something. And she says, I'm pretty sure Audrey Hepburn says something like, thank you, Countess, or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. And that final bit with, she fills the role, a lot better than she used to. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's a great film. It's highly recommended, even if you're not into rom-coms. So let's talk about next week's film, which is The Body Snatcher with Boris Karloff and Henry Daniell. Now, you're familiar with Boris Karloff very much? I'm sure you must be, at least the name.
Yeah, I know the name. Yeah. Offhand, didn't he do Dracula? Was that Boris?
He was Frankenstein.
Okay.
He was Frankenstein. Yeah. But you wouldn't recognize him under all the makeup. But on this film, he's not playing a monster. But you love to hate him nonetheless. And you haven't seen this one yet. I think you said, right? You haven't seen this one yet.
No, I have not seen this one yet.
Yes. In any case, folks, that's this week's show. Next week, like I said, we'll be watching The Body Snatcher. And so until then, if you want to follow along, we do encourage you guys to follow along. So if you hear us talk about a film for next week and you want to catch it before we talk about it, please do. And talk about it in the comments section. We'd love to hear your comments. So anyway, I will see you next week and have a good one, man.
Yeah, you too.